0943 local time. The Southern Caribbean. 61 nautical miles off the Venezuelan coastline, the sea is a flat sheet of hammered silver under a vertical sun. The air shimmers. There is no wind. Inside the pressurized cockpit of a Venezuelan Air Force F-16A Block 15, Captain Emilio Lince Paredes is watching a number on his navigation display tick downward, range to target, 54 miles, 52. His gloved thumb rests on the weapon's select switch. His breathing is controlled, disciplined, the product of years of training, but his pulse tells a different story. 40 miles ahead, anchored in the maritime commons of international waters, sits the USS Rafael Peralta, DDG-115, an Arleigh Burke-class Flight II A destroyer, $1.6 billion of American naval engineering. A crew of 281 men and women who woke up this morning expecting a routine day on counter-narcotics patrol and are now watching two fast-moving contacts close on their position at Mach 0.88. Captain Paredes believes he has the upper hand. He has surprise, he has speed, and he has presidential authorization to force that ship off its current heading. A heading Caracas has decided, unilaterally and without legal basis, constitutes a provocation inside Venezuela's self-declared maritime buffer zone. The problem with Captain Paredes' confidence is the same problem faced by every pilot who has ever underestimated a networked American warship. He doesn't know what he doesn't know, and what he doesn't know is filling every screen inside the destroyer's Combat Information Center. The USS Rafael Peralta has been watching him since he crossed the 200-mile threshold. The ship's AN/SPY-1DV passive electronically scanned array radar doesn't track targets the way an old rotating dish does. Spinning around, looking in one direction at a time, waiting to paint a picture one sweep at a time. The four fixed faces of the SPY-1D look in all directions simultaneously, every millisecond, at ranges exceeding 250 nautical miles. When the two Venezuelan F-16As departed Mariscal Sucre Air Base and climbed through 5,000 feet on a northeastern heading, the Peralta's radar had them cataloged, classified, and assigned track numbers before the pilots had even leveled off on their intercept course. Inside the CIC, the space the crew calls the nerve center, the compartment glows in blue-white light. Displays refresh in real time. Commander Sandra Brix Olivas, the ship's tactical action officer, stands behind the primary tracking console and watches the two contacts, designated Bravo 1 and Bravo 2, crawl across the screen in clean geometric lines. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. Teo confirms two fast movers, bearing 263, range 51 miles, speed 520 knots, descending through 8,000. Profile consistent with F-16A, electronic classification, Bravo series. Intent, show of force. The officer next to her nods and enters the update. The Aegis combat system, the brain wiring the entire ship into a single unified weapons platform, had already reached the same conclusion 3 minutes earlier and computed a preliminary firing solution for two SM-2 Block 3A anti-air missiles from the ship's Mark 41 vertical launch system. The solution is sitting in the queue, waiting. Commander Olivas has not authorized it. She won't need to. 0951. The F-16 has dropped to 3,000 feet and accelerate. Captain Paredes pushes the throttle toward the firewall. The single Pratt & Whitney F-100 turbofan behind him shoves 29,000 pounds of thrust against the Caribbean air, and the jet surges through 600 knots. The airframe shudders. He keys the radio. Pantera Flight Lince, closing on primary. Maintain wing separation. Prepare to execute on my mark. His wingman, First Lieutenant Carlos Pantera Diaz, answers with 2 clicks. Acknowledgement. No words. They are 38 miles from the American warship. In Paredes' mind, this is the moment Venezuela stakes its claim. Force the ship to maneuver. Make it show the world that it blinked. A clean propaganda victory, recorded, broadcast. Vindication for the Maduro government's aggressive maritime posture. His AN/APG-66 radar, a pulse Doppler system that was considered cutting edge when the Carter administration was still in office, shows a large surface return ahead. The destroyer. He begins working the weapons system, slaving his AN/AIM 9P Sidewinder's infrared seeker toward the ship's heat signature. The plan is simple. Achieve a simulated lock, pass within visual range, pull hard, and egress the message delivered. He has no idea the message was received before he even left the ground. Here's something worth understanding about the AN/SLQ-32 V6, the electronic warfare system fitted to the Peralta, the system the crew simply calls the SEWIP Block 2. Most people, when they hear electronic warfare, think of jamming, raw noise, static, a blunt instrument. What the SEWIP Block 2 actually does is closer to surgery performed at the speed of light. The system listens first. It intercepts the radar emissions of incoming aircraft, analyzes their frequency, their pulse repetition intervals, the precise shape of their waveform. It builds a detailed electronic fingerprint of the threat in real time. Then, and this is where the old-world adversary runs into a wall it cannot see. It generates a response, not random noise. A precisely tailored, coherent electromagnetic signal designed to exploit the specific vulnerabilities of that particular radar. It can make the ocean disappear from the F-16 scope. It can manufacture phantom targets. It can feed the pilot's radar warning receiver a hallucination. The electronic equivalent of convincing a man he is surrounded when he is standing alone in an empty field. The AN/ALR-69 radar warning receiver installed in Venezuela's F-16As was a capable system. In 1979-0958, range to target 22 nautical miles. Captain Paredes is focused, disciplined. His left hand works the throttle controls with practiced economy. His APG-66 radar returns a steady, clean surface picture. The destroyer is centered. His sidewinder is hunting heat. He is, in his professional assessment, approximately 90 seconds from achieving his objective. Commander Olivas speaks 2 words: execute Guardian. What happens next takes less than 4 seconds. The SEWIP block. 2 generates its tailored response and pushes it across the electromagnetic spectrum at the exact frequency of Captain Paredes' radar. The clean surface return on his scope doesn't fade. It doesn't break up into static. It simply ceases to exist. The ocean ahead of him, to his radar, is empty. The most advanced surface warship in his region has vanished into the digital ether. Simultaneously, his AN/ALR-69 warning receiver lights up with a threat picture that is physically impossible. 8 separate radar emitters, surrounding him from vectors that require his brain to briefly refuse what his eyes are reading. They aren't there. None of them are there. The SEWIP Block 2 is running a script, and Paredes' 30-year-old avionics suite has no counter for it. His radio crackles. "Linz, this is Pantera. My radar is down. Repeat, full scope blank. I have RWR activation from multiple bearings. Something is wrong." Paredes doesn't answer immediately. He is already doing what his training dictates, switching the APG-66 to home on jam mode, the contingency that allows the radar to fly toward the source of the jamming signal. It is a logical response. It is also exactly what the American electronic warfare operators anticipated. In home on jam mode, Paredes is no longer flying a combat mission. He is flying a vector defined by the ship he intended to intimidate. He is, functionally, being steered. 0959. Range, 14 nautical miles. The Peralta launches a single chaff bundle from its RBOC system, the Rapid Blooming Overboard Chaff Launcher. A small canister fires off the starboard quarter and detonates 200 meters from the hull, releasing a cloud of aluminum-coated glass fibers that bloom into a brilliant metallic fog. Against a radar-guided weapon, it's a decoy. In this context, with no radar-guided weapons inbound, it is something else entirely. It is a signal. We anticipated your approach vector. We placed a counter exactly where you will be looking. You are not hunting us, you are inside our system. The Phalanx CIWS on the Peralta's stern has been tracking Bravo 1 continuously. The system, a 20mm M61A1 Vulcan cannon mounted inside an autonomous white dome that sailors nickname R2D2, operates without human hands in the engagement loop once activated. Its internal radar tracks the incoming aircraft, continuously computing a firing solution, updating 100 times per second. It is not firing. It is not close to needing to fire. But the system's 4,500 round-per-minute potential hangs in the air between the 2 aircraft and the ship like an unspoken sentence. Captain Paredes attempts to lock his sidewinder. The AN/AIM-9P is an early-generation infrared missile, a weapon designed to home on the hot exhaust of jet engines. Against another aircraft, it performs adequately. Against a warship purpose-built in the modern era, it encounters a problem the Venezuelan Air Force briefers apparently failed to adequately address. The Rafael Peralta's gas turbine exhaust is routed and diffused. The heat signature presented to an approaching missile seeker is diluted, spread across the hull in a cool gray wash that the AIM-9P's infrared acquisition head cannot resolve into a locked tone. The missile is seeker qualified. It is looking. It finds nothing definitive to chase. The sidewinder tone, the steady growl that tells a pilot he has acquisition, does not come. 1002. Range, 8 nautical miles. Paredes is flying a mission that has already ended. His radar shows nothing. His missile shows nothing. His warning receiver is showing him enemies that don't exist. The warship he intended to drive off course hasn't altered a single degree of heading. It hasn't increased speed. It is sitting exactly where it was when he took off, undisturbed, watching him through sensors he cannot detect or counter, operating within a defensive framework so layered that his most dangerous capability, his entire weapons suite, has been rendered decorative. He has two choices: continue closing on a ship that has already defeated him without loading a single round into a barrel, or break off. The mathematics of the situation are not ambiguous. The Peralta's Mark 41 VLS holds 96 cells, a mix of SM-2 Block 3 A missiles with a range of over 90 nautical miles, and evolved Sea Sparrow missiles capable of a 50G terminal maneuver to intercept an evading aircraft in the final seconds of flight. Any one of those cells could have been emptied at Captain Paredes when he was still 90 miles out. The firing solution was computed. The authorization process takes seconds. The decision not to fire is not a tactical limitation. It is a choice, a deliberate, calculated demonstration that the ship's operators are so far ahead of this engagement that kinetic force is simply not warranted. That is the most intimidating thing that has happened to Paredes in his entire career. Not a warning shot, not a missile in the air. The quiet, total certainty that the people across the water looked at him, computed exactly what he was, and decided he didn't require a serious response. Pantera Flight Linz, abort, brake left, climb to flight level 220, heading 270, afterburner now. The two F-16 as claw for altitude in fuel-burning, reheat-lit climbs that will significantly shorten their return legs. They aggress at maximum safe speed. On the SPY-1D displays in the Peralta's CIC, the two track symbols labeled Bravo 1 and Bravo 2 curve away to the southwest and begin to shrink. Commander Olivas watches them go. EW, Secure Guardian, log full intercept package for intelligence processing, maintain track until feet dry. The Sea-Whip Block 2 stops transmitting. Normal monitoring resumes. The ship holds its course. Here is the accounting that never makes the Venezuelan state media broadcast. The two aircraft sortie burned approximately 4,200 pounds of JP-8 fuel each, roughly $14,000 per airframe at current Venezuelan acquisition cost. Add maintenance costs for a hot section inspection following the high-G afterburner egress, spare parts consumption, aircrew hours. The total operational cost of the Venezuelan provocation sits somewhere north of $60,000. The outcome: zero course change from the target vessel, zero tactical effect, zero propaganda value. Because the footage would need to show something, and what it shows is two aircraft turning around. The cost of the American response: one chaff bundle. Retail value: approximately $800. A few kilowatt hours of electricity to run the Sea-Wipe suite. Less than $1,200 in total expenditure. But the real balance sheet is the one that doesn't appear in any budget document. Every second that the Sea-Whip Block 2 was transmitting, it was also recording. The AN/APG 66 radar's precise operating frequencies, its pulse repetition intervals, its waveform structure, all of it captured, catalogued, transmitted to the relevant intelligence architecture, and cross-referenced against existing databases. The communications between Paredes and Diaz, their UHF frequency hopping patterns, their voice procedure, their response timing under stress, logged in full. Venezuela's Air Force revealed, free of charge, the complete electronic order of battle for its F-16A fleet. The US Navy didn't just repel an intrusion. It conducted a comprehensive diagnostic of an adversary's capability ceiling, and the answer it received confirmed what its analysts already suspected. Venezuela's frontline air combat platform is electronically transparent, sensor-limited, and incapable of generating a credible threat against a modern surface action group. The atmosphere in the CIC after the Venezuelan aircraft disappear from the scope is not celebration. There are no raised voices. The competence in that room is too deep for theater. It is quiet, professional, Several operators begin writing their action reports. Someone brings coffee. The ship maintains its assigned patrol box and resumes normal counter-narcotics coordination with P-8 Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft operating 200 miles to the north. The lesson embedded in this encounter is not about Venezuela specifically, it is about a structural reality in 21st century conflict that no amount of political will can override. Modern warfare is not decided by which side has the most aggressive pilots or the most motivated leadership. It is decided at the level of information processing speed, how fast a system can detect, classify, compute, and respond to a threat versus how fast that threat can complete its attack cycle. The Aegis combat system aboard an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer can execute that entire chain in under 5 seconds. The AN/APG-66 radar in a Cold War-era F-16A needs multiple sweeps, each sweep taking several seconds, just to paint a target and achieve a weapons-quality track. The technological gap between those two timelines is not bridged by courage or doctrine. It is a hard physical fact expressed in processing speed and electromagnetic bandwidth. Captain Paredes flew into that gap and found nothing to fight. No ship he could lock, no crew he could frighten, no system he could deceive. Just a hull on the water that looked at him through eyes he couldn't see, considered what he represented, and held its course. The sea lanes stay open. The patrol continues. And somewhere in a classified intelligence database, the electromagnetic fingerprint of Venezuela's most capable air combat radar is now part of a permanent reference library that will inform every future engagement, exercise, and threat assessment in that theater for the next decade. They came to show force. They left leaving a receipt. So here's what we'd like to know. When you look at the layered defensive architecture of an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, the Aegis system, the electronic warfare suite, the SM-2S, the phalanx, which single component do you think represents the greatest leap beyond anything a regional adversary can counter? Drop your answer in the comments below.